What's up, friends? Today we are here with a brand new product, and there's a whole lot of stuff on the table for a very small product. It's small in size but pretty big in power, so let's go ahead and check out the Exway Flash 1050 watt charger. Right off the bat, I'm pretty sure this is going to be a long video, but I have a lot that I want to talk about when it comes to such an interesting product. Now, the first thing off the rip, the shock factor when you go to visit the Exway store page, which I'll have linked below with my affiliate code, the price. This thing is $500, 500. For a charger. There are a number of boards that you can buy for less than the cost of this charger alone. However, I'm going to try to explain in this video why at least some of that price is worth it for a polished package that is able to charge all of your devices at a pretty high rate of speed. Now, you might wonder if there's any other chargers that come in near that price, and there definitely are some chargers that come to mind, so we're going to go through those right now. Now, it might be weird to go over competition this early in the video, but I want to drive a point home here of some of the benefits of having something that's as put together as this one is. Now, the first charger that comes to mind is called the Guli Charger. I think that's how you say it. It's G-U-L-I, Guli, I don't know. It is $315, which is, again, very expensive, but it has a touchscreen, Bluetooth control, and it has a maximum power output of 4,200 watts, which is way more than this one. I believe 4,200 watts is only accessible on 220 volt. It does support AC input between 100 volt and 240, and also DC between 100 and 380, which means you can use it at EV stations. Now, the Guli Charger is mostly aimed towards EUCs, I believe, and so is the next one that I'm going to talk about briefly. It is 273 millimeters by 105 by 47, so I want to say it's a little bit bigger than this one, but a little bit thinner. And this is pretty cool. It does have voltage ranges though, and none of these voltage ranges quite cover the range that the Exway charger has. They have 53 to 75, 63 to 90, 72 to 101, blah, blah, blah. These high voltages are mostly for EUCs that are on 30S and crazy stuff like that. The Exway charger has a voltage range that is much more applicable to ExSkates, which is between 42 volts, that is 10S, and 92.4 volts, which is 21S, I believe. The way you get to that is you just multiply 4.2 by the cell count. So 92 volts is actually even higher. 92 volts is 22, yes, 22S, which is quite high. Now, if you go and do the math, the 1050 watts that is listed on the charger itself is really just a math equation. Watts is amps times volts. So you take your amperage, multiply it by your volts, and that's that number always has to equal 1050 max. At least that's the theory. Anyway, what I'm trying to get at there is that the 1050 watts means that you're not going to be able to charge at the same amperage at the lower end of the voltage range as you are at the high end. If you do the math at 92.4 volts, all you have to do is change the equation. You do 1050 divided by 92.4, and you get 11.3, which means you can charge at 22S at a maximum of 11 amps. Conversely, if you go down to 42 volts, 1050 watts divided by 42 volts is 25 amps. Now, I do think that this does have a 20 amp limit in terms of amperage. Yeah, 20 amps max. So you are only going to be able to get, 20 times 42 is 840 watts for 10S, but that's crazy. 20 amps at 10S. I can't think of any single board on the market, or probably any DIY board, that would be able to take that safely. So all of that aside, those are some of the benefits of the Exway charger. You have a great voltage range versus the Guli Charger, or Guli, whatever, which is a little bit outside of that. Now, another competitor is the Roger Charger, and Roger Charger is sold by eWheels, and some people may know Roger if you're familiar with the EUC world, and this charger is pretty cool as well. This is a $300 charger, however, is intended for 168 volt wheel owners. Again, EUCs with their crazy voltages. The maximum wattage is between 1500 and 1800 watts. This depends on what voltage you're charging at, of course. And you can do up to 20 amps on this with 240 volt input. Now, there's not a whole lot of information about it on the page, so I'll see if I can find any other information on like size and stuff, but that's about $300. That's another popular charger for EUC owners. And the final option is you do a DIY charger, which is basically you buy a server power supply on Aliexpress, and you pretty much can do the same things as this charger for a little bit cheaper. I think there's one that one of my friends got for around $280, much less refined and still expensive. And at least with Exway, you get a warranty. You have some extra support through the app, which is pretty sweet. But yeah, so those are your options in this voltage range. There's also, what's it called? The Charge Satiator. The Satiator Charger. Yeah. This one is a little bit more of a classic per se. And this one can charge up to 63 volts maximum for lithium, which is only 15S. But it can do a good number of amps, and it's called Cycle Satiator. And it can do a decent number of amps. There's two different versions. One is up to 15S and one is up to 24S. And they do less amperage than this one, and they still cost quite a bit. I'm trying to see if I can see the price. Yeah, about $325. So right off the bat, I just wanted to get the elephant out of the room, the elephant in the room, out of the room. So now that we've sort of talked about the $500 price point, let's talk about all the things that are cool on this charger. I'm going to try to keep this brief to keep from yapping for too long, but as you can tell, we have a huge number of boards and devices here. All the way over there, I have my Onewheel. Next to it, we got Black Mamba. The Onewheel is 18S. We got our Black Mamba here, which is 14S. We've got my race board here, which is 18S. We have the Aux Pack, which is 12S. We have my pack for my second race board, which is 16S. We have the Flex 2 Pro here, which is 12S. And then way over here, we have my DIY own board, which I'll link a video. You know what? I'm gonna link all these videos. Link the Onewheel video, link the Black Mamba video. We'll link the Aux Pack disassembly video because that's pretty cool. We'll link the first ride video for this one, and then we'll link this series, which is super old. This is my first build series on the channel from many years ago. That's a 10S board. So we have a whole variety of things that we're going to charge today with the 1050 watt charger. However, there are two limits here that we need to be aware of. One is that not all these boards should take the maximum wattage or amps that this can output, and not all of them are capable of taking it. The BMS in this 10S board, for example, I believe caps out at 15 amps total. And if we think about the cell math, we have a 10S 5P of Samsung 30Q cells, which technically you can charge up to 6 amps per cell on fast charge, I believe. I don't want to do that because they're very old. So I think I'm probably only gonna put we'll do like a nice conservative 6 amps at 10S into that. and we'll set up a little profile on the charger and charger up, make sure it all works properly. We've got the Flex 2 Pro, which should be automatically detected by the charger. We've got adapters here for these that came in the box. We have our Flex 2 Pro adapter and Flex Paragon. We've got a DIY adapter, which is the Exway connector to an XT90. This is what we're going to use a lot of today. And then we've also got the Atlas Pro connector, which can be used on the board or on the Aux Pack. Today we're going to be using it on the Aux Pack because it's much more convenient. Now, moving along, I have an adapter that I need to make for this one, or I have an adapter for this one already. I have an adapter that I need to make for this one, which can also be used for the Onewheel. And then I already have an adapter for my race board, which is here, which I've actually already used to charge up the board. So we have a couple adapters that I need to make, and then I think we're just gonna go ahead and get straight on with charging, and then I'll talk about the charger a little bit more as we go through each of these different devices. All right, so I have actually recorded pretty much everything I wanted to for this video, but I'm coming back. I'm gonna put this before we do all of our charging. I just wanna make a statement here. So obviously, when you have a charger like this that is highly configurable, it's very easy to mess up your device and your battery. This does have short circuit protection that protects the charger itself. So if you were to, for example, reverse polarity, plug in your device, it would probably be okay. I don't know, I'm not going to test it, but you do have to be careful with plugging this into your device and trying to charge at the wrong voltage. This charger, unless you're using it with a Exway communication protocol device, it has no idea what your board is supposed to be at. So you could easily overcharge your board. So be careful when you're using this device. That's one thing I want to say. Another thing is that you can actually overamp or overcharge your batteries as well if you're not paying attention and not being careful. There are two ratings on cells usually. There's a fast charge rating and there's like a normal charge rating. Both of those numbers are usually acquired in a controlled environment in open, still air, which is the opposite of being trapped in a big enclosure with no air movement and a bunch of other adjacent cells. So when you look at how fast you can charge a cell or how fast you can charge a pack, you have to take these things into consideration. And so usually when I do it, I typically will look at the fast charge rating and the normal charge rating. And if I want to charge my pack fast, I'll place my amps per cell that I am okay with hitting somewhere between those two numbers. And I also pay attention to how warm the cells are to begin with, because the main thing that happens when you charge a battery is it heats up. And if it heats up too far, you start damaging the cell, and if it goes way too far, then it fires. I'm not saying that you're going to catch your board on fire with this thing, but you can definitely heat cells up. For example, if you were to charge a 12S2P pack at 20 amps, 10 amps per cell, that's way past the fast charge rating of most cells out there. Maybe excluding LifePo 4 cells, but most people don't use those. So take into consideration your manufacturer ratings on your cells and then scale it back a bit, and most of the time you'll end up with an okay number. You do always want to charge in a somewhat monitored environment. I don't recommend charging things overnight. I know people do it all the time, but it's probably not something that I'm going to be doing, especially if I'm going to charge quickly. If I wanted to charge overnight, the nice thing with this charger is I can turn it down, way down to a low number. So if I didn't need it to be done quickly, instead of charging this board at 14 amps, I could charge it at 3 amps. If you do the math, that's only half an amp per parallel group in this pack. And that's a pretty easily convincing number that it's going to be mostly fine. All these things are speculation, and my main point here was just think about the charge rating of your cells, make sure you don't exceed it, think about how much you're heating up the cells by dumping a lot of amps into them, and then the other point is you can mess up your board. Definitely make sure you set the right voltages. And then the final thing that I want to say here is think about the starting temperature of your cells. If you have just ridden a board for 2 hours, your cells are going to be way warmer than if you had just pulled it out of your garage and it's been sitting there for a day. So when you're fast charging packs, you really don't want the cells to be hotter than they need to be, because no matter what your temperature readings are, if you're like you have a thermostat taped to your pack or glued down, that's not going to be the real temperature of the cell. The temperature of the cell will be much hotter. In addition, the temperature of the materials inside of the cell will also be hotter. So these are just some things to think about, and take from that what you will, but be careful when you're charging, and this charger will not solve any of your problems. You have to make sure that you know what you're doing. So that's my sort of safety note, and hopefully that's helpful and enlightening for you guys. Thought I would film this real quick before I take it off. There's a little warning label on here talking about making sure that you are charging at the right voltage, otherwise you can damage your device. Also read the product manual and update the device through the app if there is one available. We have our user manual here. Definitely a good read, some pretty useful stuff in here, and we will go ahead and check the app to see if there's any software updates for our charger. All right, before we charge anything, let's just look at the size real quick. You can see it here in my hand. It's definitely pocketable. The weight is average. I would say it's on the heavier side, but with the amount of power that it can pump into your devices, I feel like it's a little bit okay to have it on the heavier side. But I think it is a little heavier than the GAN 210 watt chargers, which makes sense. We're just gonna weigh it right now, see what it comes out to. Without any cables, the charger comes out to 1,024 grams, aka about 1 kilogram. Now, we compare this to my favorite brand of charger, which is Ohrija. I don't know, it's some Aliexpress charger. They make pretty compact chargers that put out a high amount of power. This is an 18S 8 amp one, and honestly, they're pretty similar in size. The Exway one is a little bit smaller, and it can do much more power, but pretty similar in size. So let's see how much this one weighs. This is with the cord though, because I can't take it off. This is 1,100 grams, so a little bit more. Exway one is a little bit smaller, puts out more power, so pretty neat. However, this one I believe cost me like $80 or something like that, so pretty big difference in price. But you don't get any of the cool features that you get on the Exway one, like the screen, the app, and configurable charging profiles. So how much, or what are the actual measurements on it? About 170-ish millimeters by 90 millimeters by 55. Pretty dang compact. Just because I'm curious, I'm gonna go ahead and weigh one of the 210 watt chargers and see how much lighter it is. All right, so this one is for the Flex Pro. Obviously gonna be much, much lighter and more compact, but only 200 watts and only compatible with Flex Pro. But just to compare, this one weighs in with the cable at only 580 grams. And it's obviously a lot more compact. So one of the things I wanted to show here was the weight and size difference, but unfortunately I don't have the old charger with me anymore, but there was an old 1,000 watt charger that was quite good. Also did 12S 20 amps specifically for this Aux Pack. It was much bigger than this one, probably an inch longer at least, and a little bit wider and taller. So pretty impressive that they were able to pack even a tiny bit extra wattage into a smaller package. All right, so here we come to our first use case for this charger. That is the Exway Flex 2 Pro, which is natively compatible via its specially spec'd out cable. And this uses the Exway, I believe it's called EC charging protocol. And basically what that means is if you look at this connector, got extra pins in there, 4 of them to be exact, that interface with the extra pins in the charger cable, which you can see here, to communicate with the charger and tell the charger what board it is and what rate it's supposed to be charging at, including the voltage to make sure that the charger doesn't have any errors. Now, connecting it up is pretty easy. All you gotta do is take your charger end, plug it into the port on the back next to the power plug, nice and solid, and then you can plug in your cable that goes to the wall. I will say, if I had to complain about something with the cables, this wall cable, it is a little bit of a thicker one, but it really is not that long. It's only about 4 feet long. I really wish it was 6 feet because it's kind of hard, especially with how they position the cables on here, to put this in the right spot between your board and the charger. Fortunately, with this Exway Flex 2 Pro cable, it's a little bit longer, but for the DIY cable, it's really short because it's just an adapter, so you kind of need to be really close to the plug. So fortunately, I have a plug right over here. We'll go ahead and plug the charger into the wall, and it does power on right away. Fan kicks in. You can see the screen there. Now, I have set this up already to do 18S charging for my race board. And the last time I charged it at 8 amps because I didn't need to charge it very fast. But for the Flex 2 Pro, we should be able to just let it go automatically. So we're going to try that out. And I think, I'm not actually sure if we just have to plug it in. If you look at the manual, it basically just says plug in the board and then hit charge start, and it should auto detect it. Now, one question I have is, does it spark when you plug it into a board without the charger being on? Something that happens with these chargers consistently is if you don't plug the charger into the wall first, the charger will not have its capacitors instead of charged up, and then when you plug it into your board, the voltage difference causes a spark and starts to wear out the connector. So that's why you always plug your charger into the wall before you plug it into your board. So now if we go ahead and plug in the connector into the Flex 2 Pro, let's see if it sparks. This is honestly kind of nerve-wracking, but no spark. That is good. So now let's see what the screen says. Wow, that's actually pretty sweet. It auto detected it. Wow, it's going to charge at 8 amps. Okay, that's very fast. So now what I'm curious is, can we configure this? We can. Okay, so we can turn the amps down, and we can also set the performance of the charger. Basically what this does is it configures how loud it's going to be. You have quiet mode, which sort of will thermal throttle the charger and decrease the amps that it's charging with in order to keep the fan speed low. You have performance mode, which will get maximum amps possible and will be very loud. And then you have auto, which will just kind of pick it for you. We're not going to charge right now because I want to go into this again. Cutoff voltage. Shouldn't really mess with this if you don't know what you're doing. But it is nice to know that you could undercharge it. So let's think. 12S2P of 50S cells, that's 4 amps per cell. That should be completely within the charging limits of the 50S cell. So we're gonna just go ahead and do this. I don't think this board is super dead. Just because I'm curious how loud this is, let's put it on performance mode, maximum fan speed, and then we'll hit charge. And there you go. Jet engine is started. Oh wow, this is actually pretty low on voltage. All right, so you can see the current going up straight up to 8 amps, 373 watts, and we're charging, it's at about 29% right now. or sorry, 29C. 15,000 RPM on the fan, pretty loud. I'm sure you guys can hear it in the background. I'll get close to it so you can have a reference. Definitely audible. But you can see on the screen there, pretty sweet charging structure. And then if you click the enter button, you can click on this little interface and you get to see little graphs of the amps and the voltage and stuff, which is, it's pretty cool for the nerd in me. You can see we've gone up a couple degrees on the temperature already, even at that performance mode. So I'll be interested to see how warm this gets charging at 20 amps. So we're gonna let this go for a while and we'll see how much it warms up. While we're sitting here listening to this jet engine, I figured we might as well check out the other modes. Let's see if we can change this. You're supposed to be able to change the fan mode. You scroll over to the little fan icon, hit enter. Safety lock is on. I think we have to go up here and click that. Okay, so it won't let you change the fan speed while it's charging. So if we go ahead and, where's the end charge button? Not actually sure. All right, so I figured out how to end it. You click onto the little safety lock icon, and then I held both up and down at the same time until it stopped. We charged 0.54 amp hours, 23 watt hours, and for about 4 minutes. I mostly just did this so I could check, so I could set the performance mode. And now we're charging again. So let's go back into it again. Click, hold, and there's charge stopped. So now we can go up here and we can select what mode we want. So now we'll go 8 amps and we're gonna go on quiet mode and see how quiet it is. And we'll hit charge. Wow, that's a significant difference. It keeps it at that nice, quiet, idle fan. This is about the same loudness as fans that I have in my other chargers. However, in quiet mode, it's only letting us charge at 4 amps. So that's a pretty significant difference. Now I have to wonder if we go into auto mode, I wonder if it's going to choose, well, we're setting it at 8 amps again, so it's probably going to just ramp the speed up all the way. Yeah. Okay, so it's actually not as loud. So I guess auto mode is the best balance for this particular charging current and voltage. So we're also up to 35C on our charger readout, and I do have my thermal cam, and I'll try to put some footage in of the different charge modes as we do them. Alright, so I'm not going to let the Flex Pro charge up all the way right now because there's no point. I'll charge it after I record, but the next one I wanted to try was the Aux Pack because this can charge at the full 20 amps. And it'll be interesting to see what happens when we plug this in because essentially this is really just a 12S battery. So there's no sensing pins in the 2-pin connector that connects to the Aux Pack. So I'm curious to see, one, if this is going to spark when we plug it in, and two, what it does with it. So let's go ahead and plug her in. For reference, the aux pack is at like 45 volts, I believe. No spark, so that's great. However, we have no auto detection on the screen. So I did expect this. Let's just press the button on the aux pack, see if that does anything. It does not. So this is where we have to set up a profile. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. And we don't want to name this profile. So we need to go down to our little menu. And we need to do charge setting. And then we can go in, default one, DIY one, is actually set up for 12S. So let me get you a little bit closer so it'll be easier to see. All right, so DIY one is the default profile that it comes with. And you can go through and set all these values. For the 12S pack, we do want 50.4 volts. However, we want to go ahead and set this current, which apparently oh, there we go. Current, I want to set this to the max. I think we can go all it's 20, there we go. Fan mode, we'll keep it on auto, cutoff percent 100. I do really like the fact that you can set this to like 80% if you were trying to do like storage mode. And then we'll go save exit. And then we'll hit enter on DIY1. Oh, wrong one. Okay, so now we can go down and exit. And okay, now we're on DIY1. So 50.4 volts, 20 amps. And now I believe all we have to do is hit charge. And there we go. Slowly ramping up, 39 volts, 50.6, 50.5, and now it's going to activate the amps side. Should. And it doesn't want to charge. That is quite interesting. Wonder why. Says disconnect. Okay, so I'm gonna unplug. We are plugged into the charger. I'm gonna plug back into the aux pack. And let's hit charge again. This should be able to take 20 amps. The screen on the pack is lit up right now. It says 45.8 volts. It's trying to charge. And we're not getting anywhere. That is quite strange.
All right, so I'm trying to troubleshoot this and figure out why this isn't charging the aux pack. I figured I would just come over here and pair it with my phone. So what you gotta do is you go to your menu on the device, you scroll down to unpair, you hit unpair phone. Presumably they test these in the factory or something. And then you go to your app, your ExSkate app. It's got to be the new version. You hit your little switch device button at the top, go to add device, and then it should just pop up nearby. We hit add, Exway SC1050 being added successfully. Done. And now we can go and see our charger. And this app is honestly, this is my first time seeing it. This is pretty dang cool. We got lots of different stats here. You can see what it's currently doing, how much it is charged. You can set the modes. And the nice part is you can set up all of your different DIY boards. So we can see DIY 1, DIY 2. It looks like this data is not synced with the device. But let's go ahead and see firmware update. No updates available. However, like I said, we can see that it's not synced. It says connected, but we're showing different things here. So let's go ahead and just modify DIY1 and change it to be what we want. 50.4 volts. Charging current 20 amps. Cutoff voltage should be the same, 50.4 volts. Also, it's interesting in the app. Oh, well, that didn't save at all. Well, apparently the app is still buggy, so that's great. 20.0, 50.4, confirm, and it didn't save still, so that's unfortunate. Interesting. Or if we disconnect, reconnect, let's see what happens. This is not actually on, but okay, so it did. Disconnecting, reconnecting worked. However, DIY2 is not there anymore. So I'm curious to see if we go save exit. DIY2 is still here on the charger, but DIY2 in the app is not the same. So that's interesting. There should be, I feel like there definitely needs to be a sync button here, but in any case, let's just plug this back in. Definitely plugged in. DIY1 is selected. It charged. The app is saying that it's charging. 51.4 volts. So you blipping it in. And nothing happened. Charge stopped. Interesting.
Alrighty, well, I was messing around with the aux pack for a bit, and I'll explain what's going on with that in a second, but we ended up going ahead and charging the Flex 2 Pro completely. You can check it out here. You can see that we charged up to 50.5 volts, which might be confusing because this should be a 50.4 volt top, but this allows it to actually get topped off, and I'm pretty sure if we measured the voltage here, it would be 50.4. In any case, we charged 192 watt hours, 4.11 amp hours, and it took an hour and 12 minutes. So this was at 8 amps, and this was at about, I want to say 50% state of charge. I believe it started at 46 or something like that. Because if this was fully dead, it would probably be closer to 9 amp hours or 8 point something. So there you go. Pretty cool to see your charge summary here. And if you actually go into the app, you can see a little bit more information about like your lifetime data. So let's go into ExSkate here. And we can see that our charger is here connected. Also, the range on this Bluetooth is not super great. It goes for like probably 15-20 feet, but that's about it. So you can see while it's charging the information here. I thought you could see the lifetime, but maybe not. That might only be on the charger itself. Let's see. I know I saw this info somewhere. Oh yeah, if you go hit version, you can see total amp hours charged. We've done 849, watt hours so far. And you can see your SN code and your current firmware version. So that is the Flex 2 Pro charge. So we'll go ahead and put that away. Successful charge there at 8 amps. All right, so we're here with the aux pack again to demonstrate the 12S 20 amp charging. I still don't really know what's going on with this. I can't charge the aux pack individually apart from the Atlas Pro with the 210 charger or with this one. So I don't know what's going on there, but I can charge it theoretically while it's plugged into the board. So I did ask my Exway rep, and he said that it's possible that the aux pack is actually just charging the board at this 20 amps. So I'm not going to do this for very long, but I just wanted to show it to see that the charger can do it. And then we'll use the 20 amp charging on one of my other DIY batteries, so I can be sure that we're not dumping 20 amps into a 4P pack. So in any case, go to our DIY1 profile. You can see 50.4 volts, 20 amps. We hit charge. In order to get the 20 amps, you do have to be on the performance mode or auto. You can't do it on the quiet mode. It will only do like 7 amps or something like that. So we'll hit enter, hit charge. It's going to check it out. And this heated up the charger a lot faster. We're at 41C already. And I only charged it for a couple minutes. So it's slowly ramping up. 14 amps, 19 amps, up to 977 watts. Now, the charger is saying 49 volts. The readout on top of the aux pack is saying 46.3 with 0 bars. Honestly, this readout on top of the aux pack, I don't trust it at all. I don't think that it works properly. I'll show you, hold on. This readout up here says 46.3. It said 45.6 before I plugged it in, which is normal for it to go up. That says 49.4. The only way to really tell is to multimeter measure it. So we can actually go down here and look at the charge port on the Atlas Pro to see what voltage the battery is at down there. And we'll see what it matches. 48.8, so somewhere in between what the aux pack says and what the charger says. So that's pretty interesting. I wonder if the aux pack is not charging at all right now, which means there probably is an issue with it. All right, hopefully you can hear me over the din of this charger, but if we take a look at it right now, it's been charging for probably maybe 5 minutes. We've dropped down to 16 amps, and the board is now, I'll show you, at 49.9-ish volts at the charge port. Now, it will drop a little bit when I unplug it just because of how that works, but this is nearly fully charged, which is pretty crazy. I'm sure the cells inside are getting fairly warm at this amperage, but I'm only okay with doing this because it's not like I was riding the board and all the cells were pretty cool sitting in the garage. So this is fully charged basically, and the aux pack is still at 46.6 volts. So obviously something is wrong with it. Pretty unfortunate. Hopefully Exway will sort me out and figure out what's wrong with this thing. But in any case, 20 amp charging does work. And of course, as you would expect, as it gets closer to the top voltage, it does drop down the current, and it will eventually go into a constant voltage mode once you get up to the top of the range. It says 50.4 here, but obviously the battery in the board is not quite there yet. Oh, also, this peaked at 51C, wherever it's measuring that. It's a little bit warm to the touch, but really not bad at all. I took a little bit of footage with my thermal cam so you can see where the hot spots are. Mostly the exhaust duct is warm, and the whole case is fairly warm right now, but that fan is doing a good job of keeping it cool. Peaked at 51, although this was a pretty short charging session. So we'll see if it changes when we go to one of our bigger boards and charge for longer at a higher amperage. All right, so I charged it a little bit more The aux pack is now at 48.8. Sorry, 49.8. 49.3. 49.4. If I unplug it from the board, 49.3 to 0. 48.9. I don't know, man, I'm baffled. I think it charges the base board first and then it goes up. In any case, we charged for another 13 minutes, another 0.6 amp hours, and we're gonna call it quits for the aux pack for now. You get the point. We're gonna move on to the next voltage. If you wanna see more of the Atlas Pro, I am doing a install video for the brand new 2-stage gear drives on that board coming up soon. So make sure you get subscribed for that, and like the video if you are enjoying learning about such an interesting charger. Now, on the table here we have a host of adapters. First of those is the one that comes with the charger. This is an XT90 on the charging the board side, and the whatever connector this is, the Exway 6-pin discharge. This is going to be what unlocks the potential to charge any board. Basically, all you have to do is make a adapter from XT90 down to whatever you need. And for me, the easiest way to do that was to do XT90 to XT60. And then onto the XT60, we have a number of different things that I'm adapting to. One connector that I use a lot is the Waipu SF12, which is this one. Has 2 pins, nice metal locking mechanism, nice metal cover and everything. So we've got XT60 to this Waipu SF12. This is the male version of the cable connector. We also have one board that uses the female version of the cable connector. You can see it's holes instead of pins here. Same exact connector otherwise. Again, XT60 to that. And then we have an adapter that adapts XT60 to XT60 because one of my adapters, well, the first one that I made, had the opposite pins that I needed. So we're doing an adapter from these pins to a female version, and that allows me to connect this one specifically. So that will allow us to access all of the boards that I need, as well as the connector on my my barrel jack to XT60 adapter. So continuing on, we have an SD25, I believe that's what this is. I'll put it on screen if I said it wrong. This is my race board like charger. This charger plug should be able to do the full 25 amps. The SF12 is only supposed to do like 12 to 15 amps, so I gotta be careful, watch the heat. We also have a GX16 here. I think this does even less amps. We made a little tiny adapter there. And then we also have a GX16 to barrel because this is what I use to charge my 10S board. And that adapts to XT60. So this little adapter here that I bought can do any barrel plug to XT60. Just make sure you check the polarity, of course. So with all of these, now we can move on to charging all of my DIY stuff. And the first thing we're gonna start with is this battery right here. All right, so we're here with the charger and the battery. First thing we need to do, of course, is connect our adapter. So we're gonna go ahead and plug that in. And we've got our XT90. So we're gonna adapt our XT90 to XT60, which then adapts to the adapter, which then adapts to the XT60 again, that goes to this special female one that I low-key accidentally created because I forgot that I had the wrong one. So we're going to go ahead and set up another profile, except this time we're going to use the app. So we're going to go ahead and switch over to our charger, and we can go ahead and set up. It thinks it's charging, but it's not. Interesting. We're going to go ahead and set up DIY 3. Okay, I don't know why the button was red, but in any case, we're going to come over to DIY 3 here. And we're going to set it up to be 67.2 volts. And we're going to charge this with 10 amps, which is going to put us at 670 watts. We're going to start at 10 and then we'll see how it goes. And this will also be 67. Now I'm interested to see if the charge settings sync. So we go into our menu, hit charge settings. DIY 3 is not set up there. So I don't really know. Oh, it is. Okay. Once you click into it, it is. So we can hit save and exit. Now we have selected DIY 3. And we can go down here and hit exit. Should be able to go down here and hit exit. There we go. And now we're on the DIY 3. You can see 67.2 volts, 10 amps. We checked our polarity. So now we should be good to plug in. Now I'm interested to see if there's any spark here because this is the first DIY that I'm plugging in besides my race board. No spark at all. That is great. I think the way they're doing that is because they use a soft start with a relay in here. And that's really great to see. So now I think we should just be good to go and hit charge. Now it's going to make sure that it's the right voltage. And there's the power turned on. Amps are ramping up to 10 amps. 650 watts. Now, since I have a smart BMS in here, we can actually go into the app. Also, we can see here the charge parameters, 9.9 amps right now, 652 watts, 29C, and how much it is charged. Now we can go into our Charging app. And we can connect to, not that one. Oh, that's convenient. So this battery is actually pretty charged already. We're currently at 4.05 volts per cell, but we are charging it at 9.9 amps. Matches the screen, 9.93, 10 amps. I mean, it's a rounding thing. So this will charge for a little bit. I'm gonna let it charge all the way up. And we'll see how long this takes. I've never charged this pack at this amperage before. I know that the BMS can take it, but the charger that I have for this is a really cheap 2 amp one. So being able to charge it this much faster is a huge difference. And honestly, I think that this could even go a little bit higher in amperage. I just need to check the BMS specs. Let's just go ahead and pump it with 20 amps, and that's going to be, what's the math on that? 67.2 times 20. That's higher than the amperage of this charger. So let's just see what happens when we do that. We're gonna go into our DIY 3 right now. DIY 3, and we're just gonna change this to 20 amps, and we're just gonna see what happens. I think that's just not going to let us do it. And remember, we have to go in here. Oh, it actually updated already, perfect. All right, so let's see what happens. 20 amps going now. I bet it's just gonna max out. Relay is on. (1,058 watts. So it does automatically just max out. It tries to pump it as high as possible. And it looks like we are at 15.6 amps right now. Pretty darn impressive. And since this is pretty close to full charge, I'm just gonna let this go all the way. And we'll actually see how long it takes now and see how much the charger heats up. All right, so here you can see the thermals from charging at this 15 amps 16S. Charger really doesn't get that hot. This was a little bit into the charge. You can see the adapters at about 45C there, and this is really cool. You can actually see the cables inside of the pack going through to where it charges the pack itself. Pretty neat to see this stuff with the thermal cam, but yeah, the charger doesn't really get that hot, to be honest. I'm recording this as I'm in between things, but the voltage ended up at the top there, 67.5. It actually seems a little high, but if you look at the app, it is correct, so I guess it just overcharges a little bit to make sure that the battery settles there. We charged 3.45 amp hours and 214 watt hours. The battery was not dead all the way, of course, but it only took 32 minutes, so not bad. Worked successfully. All right, we're here to charge the next voltage. This is 42 volts that we're going to be charging at, so I need to set up another profile for that, but I want to show the adapter I have here. Got GX16 to XT60, and then XT60 to XT90. And that's what we'll be using to charge this board. So right now this is only at 40.2 volts, which is not bad, but I'll go ahead and set up DIY 4 and put this to 42 volts. .0. We're going to set the current to only 6 amps because this is a 10S5P of 30Q cells. I just don't want to juice it too much, and it's got a Dali BMS in it. We're going to try fan mode quiet and just see if it's able to do 6 amps at 42 volts. And there we go. I don't know why it says 67.2 on that front screen, but 42 here. Strange. Well, let's just exit and see what happens. DIY 4. Oops. 42 volts, 6 amps. You can go ahead and plug that in via the XT90. I already checked the polarity to make sure that we're good. And then we'll hit charge. 40.30 volts sensed. Relay has activated. And we bumped it up to 6 amps, 250 watts. The fan is quite a bit louder than I thought, and I thought I set it on quiet mode, but it says it's on auto right now. And you can't change the settings while it's charging, so we'll just let it go on auto, let this thing charge up and see how much it warms up. It's fluctuating between 250 watts and 0 though, which is strange. Well, apparently it seems that I have a battery issue with this board because it won't charge properly. It's still at 40.8 volts, which to me means that there may be a group that's high or low in here. I haven't opened this in a long time, so it's possible that a group has gone bad. These were reclaimed cells from the very beginning, so this can charge 10S. It's just you got to make sure your battery's good. So we're gonna check this out. Maybe I'll check that out in a later video. Alrighty, so we're on to our next board here. This is Black Mamba, and if you haven't seen any of the videos on this board, go ahead and check the battery build out in the iCard. But we're gonna go ahead and set up DIY 5 for this one because this is 14S. So what voltage should we set it to? It should be 14 times 4.2. which is 58.8 volts. So we're going to go up to 58.8. And we're going to go ahead and slam this one with, this has that little 14S BMS, which can do 15 amps. So we're just going to put this at 15 amps. I don't think that it's going to be able to hit it, and I'm going to monitor the temperature of this connector, but we can try. Fan mode auto seems to work well. Save and exit. And there we go. And there we go, DIY 5, 58.8 volts, 15 amps. So now we'll plug in our SF12 to XT60 connector, and we'll double check the polarity just to make sure that I got it right. And then we also need our XT90 to XT60. So on our XT90, we'll go ahead and check here. We are currently at 51.9, 51.8 volts. So this should be a great charging session. And we'll go ahead and plug this in. There we go. And hit charge. Now this one should actually work. And we'll go ahead and pull up the Smart BMS app and check how fast it's charging as well, since we have the ability to do so. This is definitely going to use some major fan speed. There we go, 15 amps at 53.7. Oh, that's only 800 watts. We can actually go up a little bit more. Let me double check the charging capability of this BMS. This is a 14S6P of P42As. They have a pretty good fast charge rate, so I'm going to check and see if we can max this out at 1,000 watts. All right, so I just had a thought here. While I was sitting here listening to this charger noise, I figured I would compare it to the charger that I normally use for this board, because I was thinking about how I would charge it at work. The nice thing about this one is you can put it in quiet mode, and then it will be pretty quiet. But I also had the thought that the quiet mode of this, I think, is pretty similar to the 10 amp mode of this charger. And while this charger is slightly bigger, it might make it more worth it. So let's just see how it is. We're going to put the sound measuring device about 1 foot away. And let's get a baseline for this room right now. Oh, I need to turn the charger off. All right, so baseline for this room is about 39 decibels-ish. Between 37 and 39. Now, let's see what the idle is for the for the Exway charger. All right, so idle for the Exway charger, we're up to about 49 decibels, so about 10 decibels. And the, for this other charger, the fan doesn't turn on until you're actually charging, so we have to plug it in and hit start. So there you got your idle baseline. We'll go ahead and plug this in. Of course, it's just going to start as soon as I plug it in. Well, that is definitely louder. I thought it was quieter, but it's not. It's just a different pitch. As you can see, it's charging 10 amps, 500 watts. Around 59 decibels. Now we'll unplug this one. And we want to compare the same amps. So I went ahead and changed the profile already to 10 amps. So you can see here, 10 amps, 58.8 volts, and we're just going to hit charge. This is in auto setting, so let's see what auto does first. So it is technically even louder at 10 amps than the other one was at 10 amps. And it's a different pitch. And in my opinion, this pitch is more annoying. So let's go ahead and try this on quiet mode and see how many amps it's able to do. When it's restricted. And we'll see what the sound level of quiet mode is as well. Alright, so quiet mode, it looks like it limits to about 270 watts if you round. .48 decibels. You know, I will give it that. It is very quiet. And to be honest, 5 amps is still a pretty decent charge speed. That's totally livable at work when I don't need to charge super fast. 4.8 amps, 4.9 amps. Honestly, not bad. And now if we go into performance mode, we can see how loud it is with the max fan speed. Alright, so I go ahead and max this out at 18 amps, set it to performance mode. We're at 3.78 volts per cell right now. We're gonna hit charge and we're gonna see how loud this gets. .66 decibels, pretty dang loud. We're pumping a lot of power into this thing right now. It said the max I could set this at for 14S was 18 amps, so I set it to max. Looks like it's doing about 1,000 watts flat, between 990 and 1,000. Pretty impressive, but very loud. Now we're going to set this back down to reasonable 10 amps or 12 amps, and we'll let this charge up. Actually, you know what? We'll do 15 amps. I'll set it to 15, we'll let it charge up all the way, and then I'll come back with the summary. Alright, so I just took a short video with the thermal cam to see how this was doing. There's a pretty serious hot spot right here, which is where the BMS is inside. And that's because we're charging at such high amperage. However, you can see here, it's even hotter on the charging connector. So this thermistor is on the XT30 inside. That's not a concerning temperature, but it's definitely warm. And if you go here and look at the other one, it's at 38. Oh, you can't see it. The other one is at 38.9. So definitely cranking up the effort here with this charging session, but I'm gonna let it finish and keep monitoring it to make sure we don't get too hot. But I think the current has started to taper off since we're near the top of the voltage range. And it did actually peak at over 1,000 watts. I checked the app for the Exway Charger monitoring. It did peak over 1,000. Only peaked at 51C on the temperature for the charger itself though, which is interesting. The BMS inside the board is getting much hotter than the charger. Of course, that's going to be partly due to the fact that there's no airflow at all. So there you go. All right, so we're here. The charge has finished now. 58.9 volt stop, 551 watt-hours charged, 10.4 amp-hours, and just over an hour. Honestly, that's not bad. That's pretty fast for it being, I think it was about half dead, so not bad. Stuff did warm up a bit, but I was keeping track and everything stayed within the expected values. Honestly, this doesn't even get that hot at that sort of maximum charging. Only about 48 or so C on the outside of the case, and it's at about 51 peak inside. So not bad. Good cooling, but very hot, or sorry, very loud on performance mode. And one thing that I don't like is that you can't change the parameters, even the fan parameter, while it's charging. So you would have to stop the session and then start it again. All right, so next thing we're charging is the Onewheel, which is going to be same connector, but different settings. So we're gonna go ahead. I can't remember if my 18S one is still in here. 18S is 75 volts, 75.6. It looks like I have 75.28 amps, so I'm just going to change this one. 75.6. And then current, we're just going to set this at 6 amps because these are 50S cells and it's only a 2P pack, so I don't want to crank too much into it. Fan mode auto, cut off 100, sounds good. And then we'll go down. And there we go, DIY 2, 75.6, 6 amps. And go ahead and plug her in. There we go. And we'll hit charge. 73.3 volts currently, so not too much of a charge to put into this one, but I like keeping this topped up. We do have the ZBMS in here, so a little bit of a different kind of charger, or a different kind of BMS than the smart ones. And for this one, this charger is actually perfect because the ZBMS, you really should turn it off right when you're done charging because of the way it balances. If you leave it on the charger for more than about half an hour after, it can get pretty warm. So this turns off automatically, which is great. So we'll check back in when this is done. Another charge finished successfully. 1.82 amp hours, 130 watt hours, up to 75.8 volts. Sorry, 75.8. Not fully discharged, but got a full charge on there and only 34 minutes at 6 amps. All right, we come down to our last planned charging experiment for this charger, and that is my race board, which is an 18S 6P of P42A cells. So this thing can take some juice. And on here, we've got our SD25 connector. This is a plastic connector that can take up to 25 amps. We've already proven that the Waipu SF12 can take more than it's rated for and still stay reasonably cool, but in any case, this one is rated for much more. So we'll go ahead and connect this up. And the reason I have this up on its end like this, even though it's going to create an awkward charging orientation, is because I want to see if we can see the charging cables inside here like we could on the other enclosure. I'm guessing not, because this is thick fiberglass, but still, might as well try. It could be cool. Take some thermal video of it and see what it looks like. We're going to be going on our 18S profile, which is DIY 2 right now, but we're going to change this to maximum amps that it can do, which is going to be 18 only 14 amps. All right, and we'll leave it on auto and go ahead and hit charge. This is probably going to be quite a loud one. We're currently at 68 volts, so this should be a decently long charge for this. Good enough to heat it up a good bit and see what the maximum performance is. So we're at about 14 amps There we go. 14 amps and about 975, 980 watts. What I noticed on the other profile when we were charging at 18 amps on the 14S is that the total wattage went up a little bit as the voltage went up. So we'll see if that happens here, but I will check back in when this is done, or you'll see a thermal video or something between now and when it's done. All right, we finished another successful charge. 1 hour of charging for 728 watt hours up to 75 volts and about 10 amp hours. That was most of a charge on my race board, and definitely one of the highest, most impressive loads that we've put on this charger so far. Obviously the 14S 18 amps was impressive, but 18S at 14 amps is honestly equally impressive to me, because you got to pay a lot more for an 18S 14 amp or 15 amp charger. So pretty good stuff. All right, I know this video is probably terribly long, but this is a cool product and I wanted to make sure I showed it off fully. So to get rid of this noise, I'm going to unplug this, but like I just recorded in that last clip, we just completed another successful charge of 10.8 amp hours, and my race board is fully charged now. So that is pretty sweet. The fact that I can have one charger and a bunch of adapters to cover pretty much every single board that I own, I think that's sick. And I definitely could have achieved this using a server power supply and some DIY skills, but it might just not quite have the polish that I would want. This little package is very convenient, and I would like to think that it's probably a little safer than DIYing a server power supply. I like the display, I like the app. The fan is a little bit loud, but I like that it has some adjustability in the fan loudness, and you are able to do a lot of different voltages, 42 all the way up to 92. Completely covers my whole range of boards, and the only real limit here is how much amperage your board can take. The 1050 watt limit of the charger, and then you have to have an adapter. So if you don't have the ability to make all these adapters for your boards, or you don't have the connector for your board, sometimes you might be able to get a connector from a dead charger. Maybe you have a dead charger for a board and you want another one. You can cut off that cable, solder it onto an adapter, and as long as you know what you're doing, you can pretty much cover any board on the market. And I think that's super cool. There aren't really any other options out there that are competing at the exact functionality level of this one. And while it commands an extremely premium price, I think that there are definitely some people out there that will find this useful and might consider spending that money. Me, I don't know if I can justify it. $500 is just way too much for a single charger, and I'm obviously very lucky that Exway is a fan of these videos and was able to send me over this charger to take a look at and show off for you guys. So while I'm not giving it the buy stamp of approval, I think that there are definitely people that will want it, and I think it's a pretty cool product. So if you want to stay longer, I'm going to try and open this thing up and see what they've got inside. Just a little quick look. I don't want to break it, but that's pretty much all I've got to say for this video. I'm really happy with the performance of this charger, of course. It stays relatively cool on the outside, doesn't get burning hot like the GAN chargers before. This does use GAN technology inside from what I was reading on the product page, which is probably why they managed to make it a little more compact than the first 1000 watt charger that they released. So again, that's pretty much all I have to say for this. And if you want to stay longer, you can see the inside of the charger. Fair warning, do not do this. Just don't. I don't recommend doing it. I'm not trying to show you how to properly take this apart. I don't think that anyone should do it, but we're doing it for science here, and I know what to not touch. So pretty much just off the bat, don't replicate this at home or at work or at school. And you didn't hear it from me. In any case, I'm curious what the inside looks like. The whole point of this is just to get like 1 or 2 shots to see. And I'm not going to take apart any of my other chargers because that sounds annoying. So let's see what we got in here. The one annoying thing about these chargers, I say these because most of them are constructed the same way. It's basically a metal extrusion with end caps, and then you slide the electronics into it. Sometimes they can be a bit annoying to get in and out. So we're gonna see what they got in here. One other thing that I would like to know is I really want to know what this plug is that they use to attach the adapters, because if I get my hands on that plug, it would make it much easier. Oh, it actually comes apart. Wow, I didn't see that coming. Okay. I want to get my hands on some of those connectors so that I can make more bespoke adapters for my different boards. It's just much easier and less resistance in the cable if you can just have a single connector rather than having to go through an XT90 and an XT60. So maybe I can get my hands on some of those one day and make some better adapters. Looks like the screw lengths at either end are different. Good to know for everyone that's not going to be disassembling their chargers. Also, this definitely would void your warranty if you have one. All right, Exway, what we got hiding in here? Oh, look at that. All right, so we've got some fiberglass / plastic. It says Formex N3 on it. I'm guessing that's just a insulator coating. We got some more plastic around the outside here. Oh, there's not actually going to be a whole lot to see here. This is interesting, though. There is metallic heat sink in here that doesn't directly touch the casing. Got some big inductor in there, some pretty big capacitors. Got a big board here, which presumably has a sideways mounted capacitor on it. Probably some MOSFETs underneath the heat sinks here. And it looks like the PCB is screwed into the base. Let's see if we can pop off this end here. I really should probably be wearing gloves right now, but I'm just gonna try to be really careful because you can have pretty dangerous voltages in here on these big capacitors. All right, so got a couple cables for the fan. Got some mega MOSFETs in here. Down the side, we've got a lot of goop holding them together, some giant capacitors in there. You're really not gonna see a whole lot. We've got a, what's it called? Iron ferrule to get rid of some of that EMI going out to the screen here. Really nice printed PCB in there. Let's see if I can pop off the other side and see anything different. All right, on this side, we've got our power plug. We've got some more capacitors, as is to be expected. And then we've got a relay in there. Kind of see the little square box, the black one down in there. That is probably what is turning on and off your output that goes out here. Looks like we've got 14 gauge cable going out to this plug. Ooh, this is a fun little tidbit here. We've got our 4 cables that go out to the sense. Oh, actually, there's only 3. We got 3 cables that go out to the sense pins that communicate with your device if you have the Exway ones. And we've got, it looks like a 5-volt line, and then we have one marked 485A and one marked 485B. I want to say that there is a communication protocol that uses a standard like that. I would have to look it up, but I'll put it on the screen if I find it. But yeah, honestly, I don't know what I expected to find in here, but there's not really a whole lot to see without taking the entire board out, and I just don't really feel comfortable doing that. I don't want to ruin it. So this is as far as we're gonna get, but for those of you that decide to stay for the whole video, you get to see a little bit of what's inside this beast of a charger. All right, for you ultra mega nerds that stayed all the way till the end, I'm going to give you a little secret. In here, in the charging manual, there's a little Easter egg if you look for it very closely. This is verbatim. Some Exway ecosystem products support the EC Plus protocol. Currently supported products include the Flex 2 Pro, we knew that, Flex Paragon, we knew that, and then there's 2 other things here. One is the MBS agent. And the Aux Pack V2. Well, Exway, what have we here? MBS agent? Could that be the MBS, like MBS America? I don't know. Guess we'll have to wait and find out, but good to know that there's going to be another Aux Pack coming, because I think mine is a little bit bummed. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this nerdy video about a brick of metal. I'll see you next time. Stay safe, keep on riding, and peace out.